If you meet a version of you that's the opposite gender, what would you two be doing? I'm a triplet. I have a fraternal brother and sister. My sister and I look extremely similar. She is literally me, just the opposite gender. We look like we belong more so than my brother. He's the alien child out of the three of us. Whenever I'm out with my sister, people think we're boyfriends/girlfriends sometimes if we go to a restaurant or amusement park. Which is kind of weird, but also kind of funny at the same time. But this one time a long-time childhood friend of mine took me out to get coffee at Starbucks because he had something he had to tell me, to get off his chest. He was beating around the subject until he started talking about my sister and how he ended up sleeping with her a couple months ago and had to tell me. My brother looks like a taller, male version of me. When I used that gender flip filter on Snapchat, I was the spitting image of him. So I sent his wife a Snapchat while I was sitting in my hot tub wearing a bathing suit. Have you ever wondered what your husband would look like with boobs? She was like, oh my god, this is equal parts hilarious and creepy. Edit, not the hot tub snap, but this is a side-by-side showing how much the filter makes me look like my brother. Interesting. I've had a similar experience. We're 32F, 30M, very close friends with quick friendship chemistry, both married to spouses we're loyal to, and he's the brother I never had. Just shared this story down thread, actually. But we both are able to give each other the friendship support needed, the perfect amount of validation, reassurance, and bullshit calling, because we know what we'd need in a given situation. This happened with me too. I tried dating my male version of me with a very awkward outcome. We even looked similar. Thought it would make sense since we are so similar, how could it not work? Turns out, we were only supposed to be friends. We liked each other, and I guess found each other attractive, but it also ended up being really fucking weird and we decided that it was not meant to be. Plus, the things I love about my husband now is that we are different in a lot of ways. The things I'm bad at, he can take over and handle, and vice versa. Much more of a team as opposed to two people looking at a situation and going, so what do we do now? And then have a nice dual panic attack. I did. We dated. It didn't end well. Edit point 1. I'm reading through your replies and it's basically like that. She suffered from bipolar disorder and very severe anorexia nervosa. We both were the stereotypical depressed teens. You know the saying, right? Misery loves company. Well, guess what? I fucking adored her company. We started talking out of the blue. Randomly met on a school trip. Her now ex-boyfriend introduced us. I know that I fucked up here. The beginnings were so freaking nice. It had felt like I found a piece of my soul that was missing. I hadn't had a crush on her just yet then, however I could spend hours on hours with her. Just casually driving around. One simple coffee would turn into an entire day spent together. I can still recall what she looked like. Small, wearing red lipstick with dark hair, brownish eyes with a touch of dark emerald-colored sparks. Her ferocious but still very feminine features out against the sunlight. But when it got dark it was even better. Driving into the darkness. Half of her face always shrouded in mystery. Seemingly uncharted waters. Beware, for here be dragons. And a dragon, I certainly found. The other side though, was a different story. Moonlight gently pouring its light, illuminating some of that mystery, giving me time to slowly uncover parts of her very soul I wanted to know more. I'm not that old, but I thought like I just stumbled upon a woman like no other. Somebody so strange and extraordinary, I had to know more. I wanted so badly to explore that intruder in my life. You know, I've done this, 32F with 30M. We play D&D together. He's not a physical version of me, but we have so many eerie past things in parallel, and personality things and interests in common. He's great, we're good friends who don't keep layers of bullshit between us. We've never met in person, and we're both married to other people who we are loyal to. But we can and do call on each other at emotional low points for support, friendship, confidences, and advice. We've helped each other through some very dark shit, helped keep each other from self-destructing at different times. If I needed to call someone bawling at 4 a.m., he'd be there to help me, and also to call me on my shit. He's the brother I never had, and I'm the sister he never had. I'm already dating her, it's kinda freaky. We look similar all things considered. We have the same hand size, shoe size, same height, both have allergies to ibuprofen, same eye color, dye our hair the same color, both bisexual, same weight, have lost the same amount of weight, both used to be much heavier and once again, the same weight, we plan to both lose the same amount of weight, both sterile, we were both recommended the same specialist for physical therapy though for different things. On our first date she was running late, so I ordered before she got there. She ordered almost exactly the same thing without even knowing what I had ordered. We have largely the same taste in men and women. One time we were at dinner and we both saw a waitress at a table a few down and both turned to each other and said, "Is she your type too, LOL?" It's been so weird, it's gotta be beyond coincidence at this point. We both have the same view on marriage and kids and even have the same opinion on open relationships. We even work in the same place. It's been going pretty well all things considered. For all intents and purposes she's a gender-swapped version of me and I'm alright with that. Well, assuming he has the same body of knowledge I do, that we're basically the same person, only different genders. After the initial arguments about who's in charge and who the real G-Gale Gold is, we'd probably collaborate on some schemes to take advantage of what is basically an ability to bilocate. It would also be cool to have a perfectly matched opponent to compete against in poker or other strategy-based games. I'll be thinking I know I would bet in this situation, but I also know he knows I would, and he knows I've considered that he knows. I have to find a way to give him something unpredictable, but he's thinking the exact same thing. He'll be all, "Sis, are you gonna check or what?" Then I'll be all, "Oh. Why did he say check or what instead of bet or what? That means something." Then we'll die of old age as I agonize over whether or not to bet my J/10 suited. I actually did meet a guy who looks exactly like I would if I were a guy. He is on the spectrum, so he just looked at me oddly. I was polite and made chit-chat, but he was clearly interested in talking to other people. His wife and I are friends and we were chatting. She noted that both of them were aware of the uncanny resemblance and we agreed it was cool that we knew what he and I would look like with a gender swap. Alas, I'm a much better looking man than woman. Also, a much better paid man than a woman. We'd probably both be secretly falling in love with the other person, but neither of us would have the courage to talk about it or bring it up. Eventually we would both go our separate ways and find someone else to love, but every once in a while, we would take a moment and think about the other and what could have been. We would later on find each other online on PS7 or Xbox Series X 360s. We would party up and play whatever the most recent shooter was. we would both be sort of nervous and express how happy we were that the other one was married and had kids. We would play a few rounds and say our goodbyes and our hey, next time we're on we should hit up the other new shooter. Comments. That's likely the last time we would ever speak. Both of us would hope our significant others didn't inquire about who the other person was, because it would be too difficult to convince our partners that they were just a random person we met through online gaming forums or something. Neither of us would be able to hide that they meant more to us than we were leading on. It would be painted all over our faces, but if pressed, we would insist it was nothing. Both of our partners would drop it, because no way could someone as nice as us ever betray or disrespect the person we love. We do love them, and the kids. But always, deep down, we both knew that we settled. I was lucky enough to meet her. The day she showed up, I knew I had met a new friend for life within 5 minutes. It was ridiculous how similar our lives and experiences and personalities were. We didn't finish each other's sentences because we knew the end of it, so we'd sometimes have whole conversations that were just partial sentences and phrases. Even my wife said it was just like having another version of me around, and that it felt like we had a hole in our lives we didn't know about, but she filled it perfectly. We worked together and had a glorious time for almost a year before the cancer caught up to her and ripped out a chunk of my soul when she left. I wish everyone could experience that kind of relationship, even for a little while. It will change you. The fact that he's just me, but the opposite gender, means we would have essentially the same memories, fears, and personality means that we understand what each other is going through, how our fears and ADHD affects our life. We'd make great therapists for each other and could help each other cope about our fears about not being good enough, being ignored or forgotten, and being annoying to others. After getting a rant/vent session we both need, because God knows we don't want to bug our friends with our problems, we'll go commit arson together. We wouldn't talk much, as we're both shy. But we always acknowledge the other. Eventually, one of us will get a reason to actually go speak to the other. We'll realize how similar we are and start hanging out together. A lot. Neither of us hang out with people very often, so we love the company. We'd become the best of friends. Listen to music together, watch reality shows together, go to concerts together, do homework together. It'd be the friendship I never had. I feel sad knowing that it won't happen, but happy that I got to take the time to think about it. Thanks, Op. I'm in the same boat, so let's see. If I met a cis male version of me, we'd make an interesting case study showing how dysphoria affects people's lives. But looking at him might make me feel dysphoric because I'd see all the things I'm trying to change in myself that he has no problems with, and vice versa on his side. We might choose not to see each other for a while until we really look different enough to avoid that awkwardness. If I met a cis female version of me, that could be a nightmare. I'd feel like I'm the wrong, defective version of her, and feel even worse about all the things that give me dysphoria now. Imagine meeting a version of yourself who succeeded in the things you failed at. It would become even more creepy with time too, because as I'm trying to look more and more like myself, I might end up looking more and more like her. We'd really have to pick different styles/looks if we want to avoid this, but even so. Even if we try our best never to see each other again, we'd still give each other the creeps somewhere in the back of our minds. Sounds like the plot of a horror book, doesn't it? No, gender is a social construct. You know how being a mom is a social construct? Like sure, having given birth is a real event, but being a mom isn't. You can be a mom if you afoot someone, or sometimes you act like a mom. Well, the same applied to gender. Sure, humans are a sexually dimorphic species and there are generally two types of privates, excluding intersex people, which are people who are born with a combination of both, but there are certain societal connotation attached to those genders. People nowadays are choosing to opt out of them, act like the opposite gender and be recognized as it and many other things. Quite fascinating. I have a feminine frame and a very high metabolism that keeps me lean but skinny. I also have dainty shoulders and long legs. Not that good for a guy, but for a woman? I'd have a killer body plus with my personality, I'd have whatever guy I want. I'm very straightforward and pursue what I want. I'm also told I'm funny and charming. But I don't have the broad shoulders and manly build, so getting past the initial attraction depends on women's specific tastes rather than that hot guy type everybody wants. As a woman, I'd be everyone's type. We've got an ancestor who did something similar, though he fled his home during the Russian Revolution. He left behind his wife and kids, couldn't get them out safely. When the revolution was over, he went home only to find his wife had moved on and remarried. So he moved to England, changed his name, got married, and had a couple kids and never spoke his birth name ever again, so we have no idea what it was. I, female, 5 gens later, have the last name he picked as his own, and despite the fact that I never met him or his kids, it's nice to have that connection still. But damn, I'm curious to know what his name was, which country specifically he fled and exactly why he fled. Was he rich? Was he high up in society, possibly royalty? Not to mention knowing there were kids left behind, so there's some extended family out there we'll never know. My grandfather was 90 when he died. At his funeral, anyone who wanted to get up could speak. After various family told their stories, an old man approached the lectern. He told a story about when he was a young boy. Some teenagers had organized a game for him and other kids where they hid a bunch of pennies and the kids would have to find them. But since this guy was younger than all of the rest, he got none of them and cried. The teenagers thought this was hilarious. The next day, the teenagers decided to play the game again, but this time, after the bigger kids had taken the pennies, Grandpa put some more out for the little kid to find. He would have been 19 or so after having come back from WW2. This was a nice warming story about a kind man that my grandfather was, but the thing that I found the most amazing about this story is that this was an old man, and he still remembers a story about kids picking on him 70 years later. I know kids are little shits, but we have to do better as a society because these scars last a lifetime. My parents saw me as an investment and kept a secret journal of how much they spent on me my entire life. What I got for Christmas, birthday gifts, movie tickets, even when they gave me quarters for the arcade. Even after I got married, they would track anything they gave us. Gifts for the kids, things they bought for our house renovations. My dad got a military discount and they even noted the reduced amount by percentage in the ledger, etc. Found my mom's diaries and a handwritten ledger with my name on it detailing everything when we cleaned out her house. She also really didn't like my wife. She repeatedly wrote that I married someone that she felt was from a lower class, and had multiple notebooks detailing what to do when she passed that we found throughout the house, stating that she, my wife, her family, and friends, were not to enter the house after she died or to have any of her possessions. Joke's on her. It took us 6 months to clean out their 3 properties. My family never showed up until the day of the final property auction. My wife and her family helped me clean out 3 packed properties and sell everything we didn't want. Completely changed my entire view of my parents and their love for me.